Good morning. Today we are beginning a lesson by an Indian, and that too by uh, Usha Jesudasan, and the title of the lesson is Justice versus Mercy. It's an interesting lesson, very short, but at the same time it makes you think a lot, and also about the main uh, person of the story that she is relating through the PROSE lesson is someone you are familiar with, at least in your lessons, earlier lessons. So here you are going to get talk about justice and mercy, whether there is any difference between them or so many things about it. The author, as I told you, is Usha Jesudasan, and let's see who she is, because her name is not familiar to the younger generation and not to all as such, but she is a little bit familiar. She is actually a freelance writer, means a writer who contributes articles to the newspapers independently, and her articles really get a place in the newspapers. So that's what we call as a freelance writer. She writes articles and books, and she writes on philosophy of life, values, and ethics. She writes or she contributes regularly for the newspaper The Hindu and the Indian Express. Her articles include 1. An Act of Discovery, Mind Matters, Out of Africa, and Exodus. These are the articles that she had published. She has a certain concept about ahimsa. We all know that our Mahatma Gandhi had upheld ahimsa as a weapon, and with this weapon he was able to achieve much. People accept ahimsa in life. So she redefines ahimsa. What is ahimsa? Ahimsa, as we all know, is equivalent to non-violence. You just abandon violence. This is what we call as ahimsa. To her, ahimsa is not just non-violence. Then what is ahimsa for Usha? It is trusting and being grateful to those around you, and she has also a definition for ahimsa. The ahimsa way begins not just with respecting the other, but also by acknowledging that the other may be more disadvantaged than you, and that they too have the right to a good life and the good things in life, which is in a way the sum total of what she is going to tell you in the lesson. It is when you use the term ahimsa, it means not just non-violence. It begins with respecting the other person, but also by acknowledging that the other person may be more disadvantaged than you, and that they too have the right to a good life and the good things in life. Unfortunately, they don't have all these facilities, and maybe they are totally disadvantaged. So that makes you a person with an upper hand. So what should you do? You should share whatever that you have with the other. In a roundabout manner, this is the message that Usha Jesudas has to convey. And she is defining ahimsa in her own terms, because it means trusting and being grateful to those around you. You are lucky because you have a well-placed job, or maybe you have a good home and good place to live in, a good income and comfortable living, and you have your family around you. That is the greatest wealth. But there might be others who just do not have any of those things that you are endowed with, or you are blessed with. And so to show kindness or to show mercy towards these people is indeed your duty. This is how she defines ahimsa. Her favorite themes in her writing: the art of maintaining relationships and expressing love. Do we need to learn about that? Definitely yes, because some of us have relationships, but we do not know how to continue with the relationship or how to maintain the relationship. Maybe it is between friends, maybe it is between husband and wife, maybe it is between lovers. But somehow or other, it is a give and take relationship, a give and take life, and only if you give as you take from the other person, that there will be a relationship. And so she writes about the art of maintaining relationships and also expressing love. If you have a relationship, then that must be based on love. And unless you express love, naturally, you don't have a relationship. She also writes about humanity. She writes in a simple, lucid style. Lucid means clear, very clear style, driving her point through stories and anecdotes. She uses one such story in this lesson also, a story that we are all familiar with, and thus proves her point in a very simple manner. She uses very simple words and clear style of writing, and she drives her point through stories and these anecdotes. So she poses these questions. Does justice mean an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth? This was an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth was the norm of the older generation. In fact, it was the norm of the Older Testament. It is in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, this is not the norm. So there is a totally different definition for justice as per the New Testament of the Bible. The earlier one, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, is indeed the justice of a certain the different groups. But even then, the change came over with the Old Testament, maybe with the coming of Jesus. So this is the principle that he operates with. What about mercy and compassion for the unfortunate? So if justice means an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth, what about mercy and compassion? These two words are words that should be always there in our dictionary for the unfortunate. Then is there any room for it in our modern fast-paced society? The unfortunate are left alone in our modern fast-paced society. We know that we don't have time for them. We don't have time to look into the matter of what makes them unfortunate. We don't have the mind. Even if we have the mind, we don't have the time or even the necessity or the facility, or we don't think that we don't have the facility to help these unfortunate people. So these are the questions that she poses in the first paragraph of the lesson. So the lesson begins with the lesson justice versus mercy begins with the idea that justice and mercy are twin concerns and challenges of every society. Both in life and literature, many people have mulled over means thought over and explored these concepts, the concept of justice and mercy. So she poses this question: does justice mean an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth? She also asks the next question: what about mercy and compassion for the unfortunate? Again, she puts in the other question, that is, does justice take into account the grinding poverty that traps millions by those who have the power to exploit? So does justice come into that? Is there any room for it? Any room for justice or even mercy and compassion in our modern fast-paced society? These are the thought-provoking questions that she puts in the first paragraph of the lesson. Then, in the second paragraph and in the third, fourth, and fifth paragraph, she continues with the analysis or even telling us the summary of the story of Les Miserables of Victor Hugo's Les Miserables, which is Victor Hugo's classic novel. And also she talks of the characters called Jovaljean, who is the main character. I'm pronouncing it in the French way. You can pronounce it in the usual manner in which you have learned it. Maybe it is pronounced as Jean Valjean. Maybe that is your familiar pronunciation. You can accept that. But it is really pronounced as a Cheval Jean. And Javert is the next one. Javert is the one who stands for justice. And there is, of course, the bishop, and bishop who stands for mercy. It is a story of these characters, especially Joval Jean, who is the main character of Victor Hugo's classic novel, Les Miserables. And it is something that we have to understand as that which the novel which had earned the respect of the whole world, one of the classics. So let's see what this novel is about. We have these characters, Joval Jean and Bishop, then Javert, who is the prototype of justice, the policeman. He is the policeman who pursues Valjean in his world. Everything is black and white. That is, with Javert, the man who stands for justice, everything is black and white. There is no gray. Gray in the sense a mixing of black and white, or this is what we call as gray. And it is considered to be almost steel or gray, and in a way this is something that we appreciate. But there is no gray in the life of Javert, and he uses these two, that is, he has only two extremes, that is black and white. You will find the story that Usha Jesudas narrates. And the story goes like this. Joval Jean stole a loaf of bread. Maybe you will start laughing when you say that, who is he to steal just a loaf of bread? But the poverty of his sister's children really struck him, and he had to do something, and so he stole a loaf of bread. It may not be enough for the family, but at least it is something. For that, he was sentenced to imprisonment. And maybe this is total injustice when we think about it. He did not steal any gold or even diamonds or money or anything on a large scale, just a loaf of bread. So why should he be punished in this manner? And so he tried to escape the jail again and again, and each time he tried to escape, his sentence increased. The number of years to be there in the prison increased. So during his time in the prison, he was filled with bitterness. His mind was so angry at the total injustice of the actions of the authority. And so he just made it his mission to continue or to do something against this. So again he tried to escape. And so one day he was able to escape from the prison, and he reaches a bishop's place. And while the bishop was kindness himself, and he gave Joval Jean the food to eat, and also he was ready to give a good beginning for Joval Jean, and also some money. But as he was leaving the bishop's palace, he stole the silver candlesticks of the bishop, and as he was running away from there, he was trapped by the policeman Javert, who was a prototype of justice. And he caught him red-handed, let's say, red-handed, and he took him to the bishop. And the bishop immediately said, "No, actually, I gave him that as a gift. It's not stolen from me. I know that I have given it to him." So there is no case to charge against Joel John, but at the same time, he is an escaped convict. So somehow or other, Joel John was able to trick the policeman and escape once again. And maybe with the help of the candlesticks that he had sold, he was able to get a different identity and continue living as a totally different person, and he became the mayor of that person. So here you find then uh, this is he changes his name and goes to a different place, works hard, and eventually becomes the respected mayor of that town, and is able to repay the bishop's kindness to him to many others. The bishop's kindness means the bishop's mercy to him, and he was able to show mercy to others and help a lot of people. And so he was continuing in this manner when Javert, the policeman who arrested him, he was not convinced of his innocence, and somehow or other he came across Valjean once again, and this time as a mayor. But to Javert, he is still the criminal, and so he wanted to expose this ex-criminal, a thief who had escaped from prison and who had avoided justice, and so in a way he is indeed someone to be taken back to the prison. So in Javert's world, everything is black and white. His moral world is dark. So we find the contrast of the bishop and Javert. And yet, aren't we also a lot like them? Some of us find it easy to be the bishop. Others identify more easily with Javert. I wonder which one is really right. So condemned and rooted out before it corrupts and destroys society. Didn't Valjean deserve a second chance at being punished for the crime of stealing? This is the manner in which Usha Jeshudas continues with her story. She makes us think. And then Valjean gets an opportunity to kill Javert. But Valjean remembers the bishop's mercy to him and decides to forgive Javert and putting aside, spare him in the sense that putting aside one's feelings of hurt and bitterness to stretch out to someone who has harmed and hurt so much. This Javert had really been haunting him, and Walton knows quite well that there is that bitterness in his heart, the hurt, because the authorities were not thinking of the situation in which he had stolen the bread, and instead of sparing him, they put him in prison. So naturally, he was so very angry, and all that hurt and bitterness had really been healed by the one action of the bishop's mercy to him. And so he had been continuously doing acts of mercy to a lot of people because one person had done mercy to him or given him some kindness. And so he decided to spare the life of Javert. And so Javert was also spared, and naturally, even though he had harmed him, Walshan is now in a place to have a life of his own. So he spares Javert. So what happens to Javert? That is what we want to know. Javert's response is that it is a safe world that rules. Maybe a lot of us really agrees with that. As we all know, Javert's world is black and white, and I told you that there is no in between. There is no gray matter between the black and white. It is just a cut and two pieces, that kind of life. And it is either he is a criminal or he is not. And he is a criminal, and that criminal just cannot escape. So what Javert says is indeed true, that he is a criminal and so he must be brought back to the prison. That is how Javert's mind works. But when Walshon had an opportunity to kill Javert, he just spares him, gives him back his life. Actually, Javert should be grateful to him. But Javert is not thinking like Walshon. Unlike Walshon, Javert could not respond to such an act of mercy. This man, who is a thief, who is a criminal, had spared him or given him back his life, and returning good for evil, pardon for torment and justice, compassion instead of vengeance, and these just do not exist in Javert's world. He was, or he regarded himself as a strong, upright, and just man, and he did not want favors from a thief. He would help no one, and he helped no one. He would help no one, and he helped no one also. So it was a safe world of rules. Uh, he will not accept any help from others. But now his life was turned upside down. So he took the only way out for him, and that is he killed himself. So is it out of pride, or was he really unable to see the connection between justice and mercy? Or was he too flawed, means too flawed means he is not perfect. He thought that he was perfect, but he was not able to distinguish between justice and mercy. And when mercy was shown to him, he refused to accept that and just put it aside and went for the other. He killed himself. Just imagine that. Even though Walshon was in prison for a long, long time, one after the other he tried to escape the prison. Each time he escaped, they will find him and then put him in the prison, and the years will continue, and then again he will try to escape. At no time in his life, Walshon had ever attempted to take his life. But Javert, who stood for justice, he is one person who had a flaw, or he had some wrong in him, something that is not perfect in him, and it is that which made him take his own life. So you find in Javert and Walshon's responses a little bit of, or even a great distance. One who had appreciated kindness, one to whom kindness was shown, and that kindness and mercy wiped away all the anger and also the hurt and also the feelings of enmity that was there in his mind. Everything was wiped out by the bishop's kindness and mercy shown to him, and he was able to have a good life, because the life that he made for himself with a different identity was one based on the things that he learned from the bishop. And this is why he was able to spare Javert, his enemy, the one who had been following him throughout his life, and the one who had been haunting him. And by showing or giving him back his life, he was showing the compassion, the mercy to Javert instead of taking his life. But the person called Javert did not appreciate it. This is why we find that Javert's world was a world which is safe with rules. And this is his response to the world. Again, you find that is the conflict between justice and mercy occurs again and again in real life also. Often it is the innocent victims of social and economic justice who have justice harshly pinned down on them, while the real culprits wriggle free because of power or fame or wealth. and we all know that this is indeed 100% true. The very poor gets to be punished, and the very rich who had taken more get scot-free, and they do not get punished. The economically poor and even those people who are much lesser in the social ladder gets punished, and it is justice to what they have done. What about those others who had taken crores of rupees and even a lot of things from the others, and they are not punished because no court will ever be able to bring them to justice. They have that kind of money to spare for the lawyers or the advocates, and they postpone things year after the year, and it continues like that. For the others, it is just very cut and dried, like in the case of Showan Jin, and why when he was stolen, when he had stolen a loaf of bread, of all things, just a loaf of bread. This is why Victor Hugo places that importance to the justice that is shown to Joel Jean. Chauvel. And so here you find that only one person had shown him that compassion and mercy, and that is the bishop. So you find Usha Jesidasan posing certain questions to the readers. How do you react to being forgiven? Do you appreciate when you are forgiven something that you have done? Like Javert, does it make you feel ashamed of being spared your life by a thief and also a convict who had escaped the prison? Do you eventually destroy yourself because of pride? Another thought provoking question. Or does it change your life for the better? Does this change your life for the better? Because Javert could have really changed his life and understood that there is no black and white with life. There is always the gray, and it is from the gray that you create life. Life is not just two ends like good or bad. It is in between things. People who are good are also bad in some things. People who are also who are extremely bad will have something good in them. So it is just impossible to separate people on the basis of good and bad. And you'll have to find that there is indeed something good in one person or the other. And Javert refused to accept that. To him, the life with the rules, of course, we need rules, but we should not be living for the rules. The rules are for us to lead a proper life. So, whatever condition that you are living in should be connected to the rules that you are to live with, and you should also adjust according to the situation. So when Javert was always after this man because the bishop really thwarted his plans. When he caught this Walshon with the candlestick, the bishop immediately came and told him that it is not stolen from me. It was given, I have given it to him as a gift. So you needn't bother about arresting him. So Javert loses an opportunity to arrest this man, and he had been haunting him forever. He knew that he is living in another place with another name, but there is no proof and he couldn't find him. And maybe after several years he came across him. So what? That other man also has got a right to live. As she told us earlier, the other people also has got a right to live. So if we go back to earlier slides, let me go back to our earlier slide and see her definition of ahimsa. It is trusting and being grateful to those around you. And the ahimsa way begins not just with respecting the other, but also by acknowledging that the other may be more disadvantaged than you, and that they too have the right to a good life and the good things in life. Maybe this is the reason why Walshon gave back the life to the person, that is the life to Javert, and spared his life. But Javert did not accept that. Instead of accepting it and thanking him, you will find him at a great confusion, or maybe his pride was really struck, and naturally he was really a person who upheld the virtue, or the what he thought to be justice, and it is both black and white to him and not gray, and because of that he took his own life, which is a greater crime than stealing a loaf of bread. So it's a thought-provoking lesson, very short, but at the same time it makes you think and makes you practice justice and mercy in your life. And you should not take both, because one is justice, the other is mercy. You should be merciful, and when you think of justice, there is no space for mercy in justice. But at the same time, you can include mercy also in your justice. This is the idea that Usha Jesudasan is conveying through her lesson, or through her writing. You can also read the introduction given to her personal life, how she came across her illness, how he survived that, everything. You can really read through and enjoy yourself. Thank you.